When you think of France, what comes to mind? A cultural icon, right? A political heavyweight? A pillar of Europe? Well, behind that image, there's a huge problem. That giant of Europe, it's in serious financial trouble, caught in a dead spiral that's just spinning faster and faster.
Just look at this number, 5,000 euros. That's how much France's national debt goes up every single second. I mean, it's absolutely staggering. It's like a financial bleed-out happening in real time.
And let me be clear, this isn't just France's problem. We're talking about Europe's second largest economy here. If it goes into crisis, it's going to send shockwaves across the entire continent. The stability of the euro itself could be on the line.
So, you gotta ask, how did France get here? How did this promise of prosperity turn into a financial trap? And maybe more importantly, what could it mean for the rest of us? All right, let's break it down.
Okay, first things first, let's really get a handle on the sheer scale of this problem. Because honestly, the numbers, they're kind of hard to wrap your head around.
That right there, that's France's total national debt. And to put that into perspective, it's bigger than the country's entire annual economic output. Think about that for a second. For the first time since World War II, France literally owes more than it produces in a whole year.
And these warning signs, they're all pointing to a problem that's been building for a very long time. I mean, get this. France hasn't had a balanced budget in 51 consecutive years. That's half a century of spending more than it takes in. Now, for a long time, this is kind of manageable, but now it's really reaching a crisis point.
So to understand how things got this bad, we've got to go back a bit, to the very foundation of modern France. It's a story about a celebrated system that, ironically, planted the seeds of its own downfall.
This really gets to the heart of the French identity. For decades, this super generous welfare state was seen as a massive success. The deal was simple. If you got sick, lost your job, or retired, the state was there for you, no matter what. It was admired all over the world, kind of seen as proof that you could have capitalism with a really strong social safety net. But there was a catch, a huge one.
This amazing system, it was never actually paid for. Every single year since 1974, running a deficit wasn't the exception, it was the rule. That whole promise was built on a foundation of borrowing.
So what happened? How did this system get so strained? Well, simply put, the world changed, but France's model didn't really adapt with it. And what once looked sustainable started to show some really deep cracks in its foundation.
The first big crack was demographics. Back in the 90s, you had about 5 workers paying into the system for every 1 person who was retired and drawing money out. Fast forward to today, and that number has dropped to just 3. So you've got fewer people paying in and more people taking out. You can see where this is going.
And the result of that is, well, it's staggering. For every single euro of value that France produces, 57 cents of it goes to public spending. That is way more than the EU average. The state has just become too expensive to run without constantly borrowing more and more money.
Then a series of external shocks hit. You had the 2008 financial crisis. That was the first major warning bell. After that came a decade of super low interest rates. This acted like a painkiller, right? It made borrowing cheap and made it really easy to just kick the can down the road and avoid making tough decisions. And then the COVID-19 pandemic just blew the doors wide open, sending that debt surging past the critical 100% of GDP mark.
Okay, so if everyone knows there's a massive problem, why don't they just fix it? And this is where we get to the absolute heart of the issue, a political system that is totally, completely paralyzed. You see that paralysis most clearly when you look at the single biggest cost, pensions. The system is what's called pay-as-you-go. Basically, the money that workers pay in today is immediately paid out to today's retirees. With that demographic shift we just talked about, this model is, well, it's just mathematically unsustainable. And when President Macron tried to touch this in 2023, the whole country just exploded. But look at what he was proposing, raising the retirement age from 62 to 64. I mean, by international standards, that is an incredibly modest change. In Germany and Italy, people already work until they're 67. But in France, it was seen as a direct attack on their national identity. And this has created this unbreakable cycle. A new government comes in and proposes some necessary, but painful reforms. Then millions of people take to the streets, shutting down the country. The government is forced to back down or even collapses. And meanwhile, the debt just keeps on climbing. Nothing ever sticks. Which brings us right back to today and the absolutely terrifying dilemma that's now facing the entire Eurozone.
You can feel it. The markets are getting nervous, and Europe is really running out of time.
And to really get why this is so terrifying for Europe, all you have to do is look at the scale. Remember the Greek crisis? Greece was about 2% of the Eurozone economy. France is almost 20%. There's just no way you can pull off a Greek-style bailout for an economy that massive.
And the market is sending a really clear signal here. For the first time, investors are demanding the same high interest rate to lend money to France as they do for Italy, a country that's long been seen as one of Europe's riskier bets. That is a massive vote of no confidence.
So this leaves Europe with a truly impossible choice, a real nightmare scenario. Option A, they risk a bailout. The European Central Bank prints a ton of money to save France, but in doing so, they basically destroy the Eurozone's credibility and all its rules. Option B, they risk a collapse. Europe refuses to step in, lets a founding member of the project fail, and almost certainly triggers a financial crisis that would make 2008 look small.
So the big question is this: France is definitely too big to fail, but is it also too big to save? That's the question leaders in Paris and Brussels are wrestling with right now. The numbers are undeniable, the politics are stuck in gridlock, and you can feel a financial storm gathering on the horizon. And honestly, the fate of the entire continent might just hang on the answer.